the people in Kerala live a much better life, much more dignified life. Everybody wants, all states, India government wants to increase the GDP, but Kerala focus was on redistribution. We want to change the course of development. Capital doesn't want to come into Kerala, fearing that the left is ruling. BJP's policy is GDP oriented, not redistribution. And what's the problem? Your economy is growing, maybe from remittance, you have redistribution, welfare for people, then what's the problem? Everybody in India can be given food meal, fed. We don't have to be bottom of the hunger index. Everybody can be educated. Everybody can have better healthcare facilities. Everyone can be provided social security, provided we have a politics of redistribution.
Hello everyone. Today we have amidst us Mr. Isaac and thank you for speaking to us. Sir, you have been the Finance Minister of the Kerala government from 2016 to 2021, and also as an economist you have constantly analyzed the economic situations of both the country as well as the state of Kerala. However, today we want to speak to you about the ongoing financial crisis which the Kerala government or the economy is facing right now. So firstly, we want to know about how is the Kerala's economy special? What's the speciality of the Kerala economy and how is it different from that of the other states?
When the state was formed in 1957, it was one of the backward states in India. The per capita income was 25% below the national average. But now, Kerala is one of the relatively richer states. Per capita income of Kerala is 60% above the national average. And per capita consumption is highest in the country. And if you take, say, assets, rural household assets, it will be only second to Punjab. But Kerala is not an industrial state. Industrially, we are relatively backward. Then how did we become rich? This is because we invested in education, healthcare and so on, in human resources, and this enabled the young people to get employment first in Indian cities in other states, and then later from 1970s to go to the Gulf countries, now to the Western countries, and they send in a huge amount of remittances. These remittances constitute something like 30% of the state domestic product. And that's the reason the standard of living in Kerala, one of the reasons Kerala has improved. Kerala is a richer state. But what Kerala is known for in the development literature and by political activists all over is its success in redistributing the income and facilities to the poor. Now, everybody wants, all states, India government wants to increase the GDP. But Kerala focus was on redistribution. And it has done through 4 methods. One, we have undertaken land distribution, land reforms. So much so, about 60% of the total landed area of Kerala was redistributed to the tenants and others. So there's a huge change that has taken place. Redistribution of assets. Secondly, we have supported a trade union movement so that people have collectively bargained, struggled, and achieved much better, higher wages. Say if you take a rural field worker in Kerala would get 900 rupees per day wages, whereas in Gujarat it would be 290 rupees, a huge difference. So this is a redistribution of income. And third, public provisioning of health and education facilities. In most states, it's left to the people to fend for themselves. But starting from even the days, pre-independence days, powerful social movements in Kerala compelled the government to spend on education and healthcare, and this tradition has improved further in the post-independent spirit, so much so the educational standards of the people are much higher, the life expectancy, infant mortality, by any indicator of health, Kerala's health status much higher. And fourth, that is more current even, the government has taken initiative to provide social security for everybody. And social security, pensions, other support system for the poor and so on. So these are four ways through which a redistribution has been undertaken. Now in India there is a lot of talk about freebies and so on. Now political parties compete in giving some support to the people, but it is not a question of redistribution, it is not a question of freebie. Redistribution is land reform, redistribution is movement, trade union movement, higher wages, redistribution is providing free health and free education to everyone. Add to that the freebies in the social security and so on. So much so, the people in Kerala live much better life, much more dignified life. If you take, say, Human Development Index of UNDP, Kerala would be more nearer to a middle income country than, say, least developed economies in the world. If you take sustainable development goals, is the same. By any indicator of development, we have been able to provide ordinary people much better life. So the lesson that Kerala holds out to India is everybody in India can be given full meal, fed. We don't have to be bottom of the hunger index. Everybody can be educated. Everybody can have better healthcare facilities. Everyone can be provided social security, provided we have a politics of redistribution. That's a big lesson of Kerala, and it can be done within the system. You don't have to wait indefinitely for social change, socialist revolution. Today it can be done. That's the lesson of Kerala.
Okay, thank you, sir. So the next question is that you had innovated certain novel ways to gather finance for the industrial and infrastructural development of the state. Can you please tell us something about?
Yes, my description of Kerala would have raised in your mind a question. And what's the problem? Your economy is growing, maybe from remittance, you have redistribution, welfare for people, then what's the problem? The problem is that industries are not developing, and therefore quality jobs which educated people want, youth want, are not generated within Kerala. And therefore there's a big danger. For example, something happens to the remittances, it will be calamity here. So it's very, very important that we develop industries, create quality jobs within Kerala. Now there is a lot of prejudice against Kerala. Capital doesn't want to come into Kerala, fearing that the left is ruling. The Congress in the past year raised the rightist forces, a bogey of left within Kerala from 1957, when for the first time the Communist Party came to power in Kerala. Though there is a prejudice against Kerala like that. So capital doesn't come, but there are also some real reasons. One important, most important reason is our infrastructure is very backward. Because we have spent so much on education, healthcare and social security, there won't be much money left in the budget to invest in infrastructure. So the investment in infrastructure in Kerala has been less than half what other states undertake in the rest of India. And therefore, this infrastructure backwardness is a major hindrance for industrial development and attracting investment. And therefore, the left in Kerala wants now not only to redistribute but also develop the infrastructure so that you give real competition to even to the Gujarat or the big states of India who are attracting investment. Kerala is an investment destination. Left has a program to take it forward that Kerala can be good not only in welfare but also in production. Is the left path towards that? What will be the non-left path? Anti-left, right path. Right path will say you are pampering the poor, ordinary people, spending too much money on them, cut that expenditure, invest it in infrastructure. Two, they would say get the big investors, Adanis and so on to come in and let them build up the infrastructure. Why should the state dabble in that? Now, what? We will cease to be left if we cut on the say support system for the people. That's not a choice for the left. Two, yes, we are not against corporates to come and invest in Kerala, but many of the social infrastructure you cannot have corporate investment. You can have corporate investment only when you have a revenue model. That infrastructure will generate revenue which can be then the profit for the corporate will come from that. Now hospitals, their aim is not to, we need new hospitals, but we cannot say let a user fee be imposed. Now in a state where schooling is free completely and gives textbooks, noon meal, uniform, everything free. But now we can say we'll impose a user fee so that digitalization, school take place and buildings come. See, our state is very different from most states in India. It's a high density of population and people live like a ribbon. The households extend from one point of state to the other on both sides of the roads. And therefore, if you want to have a revenue model of road building, road construction, you need to have service roads, which means destroying all these houses is politically infeasible. So how do you do it? Only way you can do it is the state investment. There are other investments like in say infrastructure investments like, for example, industrial parks and so on, IT parks, where can be collaboration and so on, needn't be. But this infrastructure requires something like 1 lakh crore investment if Kerala has to come up with the rest of India. So how do you raise this money? So we innovated an institution called KIFBI, with Kerala Infrastructure Fund Board, which would borrow from the market, invest in infrastructure. They will put contractors and everything. Government, it doesn't come to the government treasury. They will do it. Government will pay them an annuity every year. And this institution will always calculate what would be the future flow from the government. It's in the legislation. Half the motor vehicles tax will be paid to that. So they can calculate the future revenue. So all that they're doing is they securitize the future revenues. Borrow now and invest. So we have sanctioned something like 80,000 crores of roads, bridges, new buildings and so on, electricity lines, harbour, We have used this money to leverage construction of national highways because central government, like other states in India, they want 25% of the road acquisition, land acquisition to be met by the state government. This is not applicable to any state in India. Well, that is a big hindrance. We use this fund to pay for that. So we don't have to limit our social welfare expenditure. Keep that, and yet within 5, 6, 7 years, 10 years, definitely Kerala would have leapfrogged to the forefront of quality infrastructure. So this is the innovation, financial innovation.
Thank you. So one of the charges which the BJP government is accusing against this model is that you have violated the financial discipline norms by adopting this instrument. So your opinions on it?
And this alternative that we are putting is a big challenge to the neoliberal policies. One, you are keeping firm, holding on to redistributive approach. BJP's policy is GDP oriented, not redistribution. They want to roll back the labor laws, they want to roll back all land reform laws, and they are against freebies also. And they want to privatize education, healthcare. But we are holding firmly to our left position. And now, suppose we are also able to overcome our infrastructure deficit, attract investment, and reform our higher education to a new plane, that will be a big challenge to the neoliberal policies. They therefore want to scuttle it. So they had a mischievous plan. They said this infrastructure borrowing by KIFBI is equivalent to state government borrowing, because state government later date was repaying it. Therefore, every state government is permitted to borrow 3% of their GSDP. Kerala won't be allowed. Kerala will be allowed to borrow last 2 years only 2%. And this year even less than 2% they are saying. Because they are going to reduce whatever money that has been borrowed by KIFBI from the normal borrowing of the state government. Now this whole argument is humbug. Every government, state government in India and the central government also undertake annuity programs. That is to say, you want to build a national highway. Okay, you tender it. But the contractor will have to borrow money and construct it. And the government will pay the contractor the estimate amount plus what he considers as interest, spread over 15-20 years. This is annuity program. Every state government has been undertaking this, Kerala also, even while left was not ruling. National highway is a hybrid type. Central government spends some money, half the money is borrowed by the contractor, with the contractor getting 15. Nobody so far has said this borrowing, annuity borrowing, is borrowing by the state government or central government. Central government borrows something like 3 to 4 lakh crores of rupees annually as off-budget borrowing. Never has it been considered part of the central government debt. It never has it been considered a part of the fiscal deficit of the center. So now they mischievously choose 2021 as the year when they are going to crack down on KIFBI. They are going to cut the borrowing power of the state government. They have deliberately chosen 2021 for the simple reason that was the year in which the compensation system for GST ended. and state would be financially in problem. Further, Kerala was getting a revenue deficit grant from the 15th Finance Commission, and that 15th Finance Commission grant was tapering and come to end in 2021. So any normal state government would be in problem with that. But they chose that particular year to reduce the KIFBI borrowing, not the future borrowing or current borrowing, whatever KIFBI are borrowed from 2016 when KIFBI was founded. So they deliberately created a financial crisis in the state. It's a financial blockade against the state government by the central government. We have gone to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court thinks that this is some serious issues are involved, fundamental constitutional issues. They have referred to the constitutional bench. Meanwhile, the fiscal crisis in Kerala is getting prolonged and prolonged.
So since you've spoken about the financial crisis, I want you to elaborate on the nature of the financial crisis which the Kerala government is facing right now and how the Kerala government plans on dealing with the crisis.
So let's put Kerala revenues is something 1,50,000 crores, the budget, annual budget. So suddenly you find revenues which were coming from the central transfers because GST compensation has ended, because revenue deficit grant has ended, would be less by say something like 10,000 crores. Then central government is holding back something like 5,000 crores, which are due to us but they're not paying on some pretext or another, that is 15,000. Then they cut 15,000 crores of normal borrowing. So that is 30,000 crores from 1.5 lakh crores going down. And we will have to reduce our expenditure, that's it. Now this is, government spending is something like a big train moving. You can't put a sudden brake. You have to slowly change the gears. So we are thinking how to get over it, but payments to supports to people have suffered because of all this, but that we don't want to. Whatever happens, the payments to the people, their pensions, their scholarships, their welfare supports, they are sacrosanct. The left will not touch it. Therefore, that's one decision we have made. But then where will the reduction come place? It has to be carefully calibrated. That discussion is going on. Then what happens to KIFBI? Well, KIFBI has borrowed, it will continue. But it may not undertake new investment. We will have to think about new ways of financing infrastructure in terms of PPP, land bonds, and various mixture of measures. We'll think, they bring one blockade, we'll innovate another one. So we'll proceed. And there are always mobilizing people to do some remarkable things. Kerala achieved 100% literacy through a mass movement. Kerala brought about one of the most radical decentralization programs through a mass movement called People's Planning Campaign. Therefore, we will also think ways through which people power can be mobilized to take forward the development of Kerala.
Okay. Thank you so much. The last question is, what are the disastrous impact of the attack on fiscal federalism by the centre, and what are the scopes for resources mobilization by the state government?
The central government using FRBM Act to totally control the state government expenditure, functioning. The basic problem with this law is that can be no such laws. Look, COVID came all over the world, all fiscal management laws enacted like ours have been given up. Given that you have enacted a law, then it should equally apply to India government and state governments. Ever since it was enacted in 2003 or 4, not a single year India government has complied with it. Even this year, India government's fiscal deficit won't be 3%, but by 5 point something percent. So, central government has never complied. Central government revenue deficit has been not zero, but always above 2%. So, central government does not comply. State governments complied, which I don't like, not more than complied. One, the revenue deficit is, if you take all the states, is zero. Your fiscal deficit, they don't borrow 3% here. Less than 3. These norms or ideals of fiscal restraint and fiscal conservatism have so much been internalized by most of the states that even during COVID, when central government allowed much larger borrowing, up to 5%, the state governments were led by this law which says your revenue deficit has to be zero. They were hesitant to spend. You had in the state government treasuries 3 lakh crores rupees lying unspent. Money which has been borrowed at 7%, 8%. Kerala was one of the few states which had a deficit. We spend the money for the people here. So, despite that, this is a state of this. A state decides to have a different course of development. Kerala, historically, chose to focus upon social investment, while India did not. Therefore, we ran a big revenue deficit. Therefore, we didn't have money for infrastructure investment. And now, we want to change the course of development, our development path. We want infrastructure catching, so temporarily we want to borrow more through a fiscal agency outside. No. BJP is a party which ideologically is against the diversity of India. Here is a state saying we want to have a development, different development path. They can't accept that. They can't accept that. Therefore, they use FRBM Act, Finance Commission, every agency to put more restrictions on the autonomy of the state government. Now that BJP doesn't have that majority, single majority, the coalition government is ruling India, and there are powerful opposition, and I am certain in the coming state elections, BJP is going to get drubbing in Maharashtra, Jharkhand, now that Soren is out in Jharkhand, and so on. I am certain federal forces of federalism will get strengthened, and BJP's attempt to have this one nation without states is checkmated.
Thank you so much for talking to Opinions from Assam. Thank you for your time. Thank you so much.